Hey there, it's Nico, and welcome to A Life Behind the Bar. In each episode, we uncover the untold stories of bartenders, their wins, challenges, and the dreams poured into every drink. It's not just about what's in the glass, it's also about the hands that make them. Today, I have the privilege to sit down with a dear friend of mine, Lydia. As we dive deep into her personal journey, pull up a stool, and let's get to know the person behind the pour. Please, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, give us a rating, and share with your friends. Your support helps us continue to bring you the tales from behind the bar. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you. How you been?
Fairly good.
We're doing this again, huh?
Yep, we're doing it again.
Sorry about the last time we kind of messed up with the audio. that was definitely me. I messed up with the audio. I didn't realize it wasn't recording at all. So
That's okay. We can do it all again.
yeah, you got great video though. I gotta show you the video. It
Okay.
actually is pretty good.
Well, the little sped up one that you posted on your story was
Yeah,
it looked good in itself. So
yeah. It was kind of sad because I was super excited. I was like, oh my god! And I remember like talking to like the feed company and everything, and they were just kind of like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. But I was like, fuck. But anyways,
oh well,
what are you up to?
just traveling.
Traveling.
Yep, working. Single mom life, all that good stuff.
So Lydia, tell me a few things. I know we've talked about all this before and everything. I've known you for a long time now. So it's probably like what, 5-6 years?
About that, yeah. Yep.
And now you're still bartending.
Occasionally, yes.
Occasionally,
yep.
You decided to start like veer away from like the bartender life.
Yeah, I got away from it for the most part just so that I could have better scheduling to raise my daughter. Because with bartending, food industry in general, your hours are all over the place, and I wanted to be able to raise my own kids. So kind of veered away, but I still do the occasional helping out here and there.
Get called to like, bartend at launches, rocket launches, no big deal.
Just beer and wine, no big deal.
No big deal. Just
Super
see
rich people, whatever.
Rich people doing Elon Musk, sending rockets
Some
to space.
astronauts here and
some
there.
astronauts here and there, no big deal. Then your shit getting sent to space, not just your usual
It's
drunken
nothing.
sailor. No, not at all.
Yep.
That's actually pretty awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
I'm a little jealous.
I mean, it's hectic and it's not set up for bartending, so you're kind of like making do with what you have, but you meet a lot of funny and cool people, very interesting. You learn things, and then you get to see the rocket launches go up from a very good point of view. So
Yeah, you're like right there.
yeah, definitely not complaining, especially the night launches. Those are, even though being there all night sucks and you're tired and
It's a
slap
long
happy
fucking
at a
day,
certain point, it's worth it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that when I first moved to the Space Coast was kind of like, man, a rocket launch. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I've never seen something like that in my life. Like, dude, I grew up in a third world country. Like, I didn't even see like
I mean, I grew
military
up in West
jets.
Virginia.
Like
It's basically a third world country. It's the same thing.
So it was kind of like the first time I saw a rocket, I was like, this is crazy. I remember driving like right next to the highway and like parking there and like seeing all the people like coming out, and then you're like feel the rumble of the rocket. And to me, it was amazing. And now you get to see that from like the closest you could possibly see it, other than being,
Being on the launch pad.
on the launch pad.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but you're actually like working, making money in bartending, and
Yeah.
that's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can't complain. I mean, that's not gonna lie. That's my biggest motivation to still do it, because I have another job. I don't have to do it, but you can't beat it. So if they need me up there and I have the free time, like make money while getting to see a rocket launch, definitely gonna take that opportunity for sure.
So Lydia, I know you're from West Virginia, so I want to know about that. I want to know what that mountain girl life is. I want to know where you come from. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, the mountain girl life. Grew up very, very small area, like only a few hundred people in my town. Graduating class was 180 something. And when I say that graduating class, that's for like my entire county, not just like my town. Like you have high schools around here. It's my entire county, and we were like the largest class in like 20 years or something. So it's crazy, but that's where I got started in the food service industry too. It was a little mom and pop restaurant, and it kind of fueled that, whole desire for the interaction with people and making people have a good day when maybe they're not having a good day at all.
Yeah.
The things that keep you in the food service industry, even though like sometimes it sucks, like there are those things that keep you there. I learned those back home with my regulars in my small town, middle of nowhere. So
that's awesome because, like, at the end of the day, you know, that's other things that actually, like you said, that keep you in the industry is a lot of times, besides the money, obviously, but, you know, sometimes the regulars are the one that, like, kind of like, yeah, you know what,
Yep.
maybe I'll hang out. Maybe after you deal with, like, 20 assholes, that one regular cracks a stupid joke, and you're like, fuck it, it's not that bad, I guess.
Yeah. No, there was still definitely that where I was from. Like, you had your assholes, whatever, but unfortunately, I don't know, it's unfortunate and fortunate. Everyone knew everyone. And I know people around here say that in their towns and whatever, but it's true for like my entire area. Even if they don't know me personally, they know my dad, they know my grandpa, whatever. So you get brought into the brunt of every joke you can possibly imagine, including the ones that you hear a million times a day. Yeah. And, you know, it is what it is, but you know, it's fun. It's still fun.
Yeah. Nice. So you grew up in West Virginia, right? And you started working in West Virginia, a little restaurant. You started doing what, like serving, right?
It was serving, yeah. I was actually, so at this restaurant, they had a rule that you weren't allowed to serve until you worked at least a couple weeks as a dishwasher because dishwashers get shit on a lot. So I actually technically started dishwashing. But yeah, serving was the main thing. And I don't know, I was 17 when I started that. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I had some regulars there that were super cool. I really enjoyed them. They would come in at like the same time pretty much every day. I knew what they wanted. And usually they were a couple older men. So I would just chill with them and sit at the table and talk to them and get to know them. And as weird as it is, like, they became like family to me. So like, we got really close to the point when I moved away, they actually all brought me gifts and everything. We're like super sad that I was leaving, which pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, but you know, they're good people.
Nice.
Good people.
So how do you get out of West Virginia? What happened? Why did you get out of there? It seems like, honestly, like, I've been to West Virginia a couple times, and actually, ironically, West Virginia was where my green card was issued, even though I didn't live there, but that was like the closest immigration center to where I was living in Kentucky. Okay. And when my green card was issued, I actually had to go to the immigration center that was in, I think it's Charleston, West Virginia.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was actually pretty nice. Like, I thought it was beautiful, like in the mountains. I was like a little bit on the winterish kind of time.
Yeah,
so
you didn't get
cool.
The backwoods experience.
No.
Though. Charleston's more city. You don't
But
understand.
I did live in the backwoods in Kentucky, and it was awesome. And that's still Appalachia. It may not be quite West
Kentucky's
Virginia.
We like to shit on Kentucky because it takes all the heat off of us when we're getting made fun of. So you understand. You get it.
The blue people, no teeth, all the stuff, the myth, whatever. But no, actually, Kentucky was surprisingly different.
It's beautiful. The mountains are great. The people are friendly for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good place to grow up. Good place to be from. I don't necessarily want to move back there. I get homesick in the fall because I miss the mountains in the fall time.
It's so pretty.
The leaves changing and all of that. Yeah, but I don't know. My area is very, very small. So I don't know. I'd love to go back and visit. I just don't know that I want to move back there.
It's crazy because I don't know if I could live in a place like West Virginia, although I will definitely live in North Carolina. I will live in the mountains.
Oh, I want to go to North Carolina.
Like, I just want to get out of Florida. Don't get me wrong, I love Florida, but I like the mountains better. That's it. Like, it's just the way it is.
North Carolina is different too because you have the mountains and you get that experience, which is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But a couple-hour trip and you're at the beach.
Yes.
So like you kind of have both. So it's nice. Whereas here it's like you got the beach and the humidity and
the mountains is the dump where the man-made mountain.
Yeah, pretty much.
524.
And then West Virginia is the opposite. It's like you got the mountains, they're beautiful, but like that's all you have. Especially where I'm from. Like quite literally, our entertainment was, which don't get me wrong, I love, was going 4-wheeler and dirt bike riding and drinking beer in the woods. Like that's all there was to do. There wasn't a whole lot
That's how
else.
it was in Kentucky. It was like we used to like go to the abandoned coal mines.
Yeah.
And like just hang out there and just do bonfires, and it was fun.
It's so fun.
And just like how many times I slept in the bed of my truck.
Yeah.
Just pass the fuck out.
That's why I have the capability of sleeping anywhere. I've had to sleep on the ground one too many times. But yeah, no, it's great. I love having those experiences, but it is nice being somewhere where there's more to do.
Yes.
Like there is a lot more available here. Like even if you live in the country here, you're still pretty close to everything.
You're 45 minutes away from everywhere.
Right. And back home, I'm 45 minutes away from the closest
from like
Walmart.
Walmart.
The closest hospital. So like it was a little bit different.
It is crazy though. It's crazy. Yeah, like Kentucky was kind of the same. Like there was not much to do. There was like the Applebee's and a few other things.
Yep.
But if you were somebody that enjoyed doing stuff outside, it was
great.
It was great.
Yeah. No, we had nothing. We had mom and pop restaurants.
Yes.
That was all we had, and there was only a couple. And then as far as chains, quite literally, it wasn't until my senior year of high school that we got a McDonald's in my county. So like,
Wow.
And it was front page newspaper. Like it was big
the most
news.
exciting
It was
fucking thing
big
ever.
news, and like it's a McDonald's. But for us, it was like we have nothing here. This is crazy. But yeah, that's where I'm from. At one stoplight in the whole county. When I say from like the backwoods,
boonies.
I'm from the boonies. Yes, for sure.
Which is funny because you have no accent, by the way. That's the one thing that I'm like, I would have never thought that you were from West Virginia or something,
from time to
unless
time.
you had told me.
It comes out from time to time. Like Southern West Virginia has more of that Southern drawl accent. Mine comes out with certain words, like words that end with the I sound. I have to concentrate because like when I say bye, usually it's bye. Like bye, see you later. And I have to concentrate because I get made fun of for it all the time. But
Don't just let the Southern accent come out. It's the best thing ever, man.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know.
So how you get out of West Virginia? Where do you go next?
Ohio.
You go to Ohio.
I went to Ohio. Not much better.
No. It depends on where in Ohio, but yeah, it's Ohio.
So I got married very young and moved to Ohio, which is where he was from. And I worked at a few places, but I worked at a restaurant there too and bartended. And, we were broke kids. I was 19, so like broke. Learned to make good money serving and then eventually bartending.
Yeah.
It wasn't as small of a town as where I came from, but still definitely had that rural community going on there. We're in the middle of a bunch of cornfields, that kind of thing. But no, it was good. That gave me a good foundation. I mean, I definitely was pursuing my dreams and whatever as much as I could. And then eventually the whole thing just fell apart, which we don't need to get into all that.
Yeah, it's okay.
But it fell apart and I ended up in Florida where my parents had retired to. So I kind of just followed them here, and then I needed money immediately. I'm a single mom and have no job and moved to a new place. Like I needed a job like yesterday.
Yeah.
So started at Publix first and then got into restaurants and bartending from there. Ended up managing a restaurant for a little while.
Nice.
So I've done a little bit of everything in the restaurant industry or food service industry. Bartending is the best, though. I'm not going to lie. You make the best money. You meet the best people.
You don't have as much responsibility as a manager.
Yes. Don't do management.
No.
Don't do it.
No.
It's a trap.
No hate to the managers out there, but your job sucks.
It really does. It really does. But no, bartending. And that's why, like, even now, if I were to get a second job or, move to a new place, that would be my go-to thing, would be bartending. Because you really do meet awesome people. You meet assholes, but you meet awesome people. Yeah. And you get that interaction with people that, I don't know, I'm an extrovert in a lot of ways. So, like, I like interacting with people. And you make good money. Yeah. You make really good money.
And it's one of those things, like, there are downsides to bartending. Like, sometimes the schedule can be very flexible for somebody that's like a single parent or something like that. But it's also kind of like, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you get to miss out on a lot of holidays because you end up having to work holidays. Yeah. Sometimes you get to miss out on things like benefits and like all that stuff that you need when you're a parent.
Yes.
And it's kind of it's really hard to actually find a place where you can get those things in this industry. But then again, it's very flexible in a way. Like, hey, if you need to pick up and leave and move to another state or somewhere, That is a great
Yes.
play. That's a great skill to have because you can get at work,
Oh,
a
for
job
sure.
anywhere.
For sure. And it really hones in on your skills as far as de-escalating situations
Yeah.
because, I mean, even serving, you end up with people that are irate over stupid reasons that don't matter, and you have to figure out how to de-escalate the situation. Bartenders have that skill even more so because you're dealing with people that have those same issues, but they're usually drunk.
Yes.
So it's that skill of having to de-escalate situations really comes in handy, like in life in general. But like you learn very quickly how to handle certain people, like their personality is this way. Okay, so this is how I have to handle it, and it can be completely different. Like I've had people that are from like New York, and they're very dry, sarcastic assholes. They just are. But
they don't mean any
they don't
bad
mean
for
no.
it. Like
and
with
so
it.
like sometimes they'll say things, and like you just being like, oh, I'm sorry. It's almost like they feed off of it and they get worse.
Yeah, I lived in New York.
Yeah, so I'm the type of person that I'm just like, what are you going to do? Fight me? Like, come on, I'll fight you. And like, they laugh. They think it's funny because you're giving it back to them. But you learn that being able to read people and know what you need to do in that situation. And oh my gosh, that comes in handy so much throughout life.
And that's one of those things that you were talking about last time was that the soft skills that the soft skills that you actually acquire with in this industry and working in this job, and how transferable they are to just pretty much about any work.
Oh yeah.
Like, and we underestimate that, and we kind of like don't pay attention too much as to what that actually brings onto the table when we're trying to get out of the industry, we're trying to find another job, or if we're just somebody that is just doing this for like a small period of time while they get to college.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I have myself found that situation where I go into an interview and I tell like, hey, this is where I got this skill from, and these are my soft skills. And they're like, how do you? I'm like, yeah, I mean, because you have to be able to learn those things in order to be able to be a successful bartender.
I think people in our industry too, we undersell ourselves and we underestimate our abilities because we're so used to people. There's a lot of people out there that look down on us because you're just a bartender, you're just a server.
Yes.
And they don't. Most of the time, those people have never worked in the industry and they don't understand what all you go through and what all you have to learn for that. But there are so many skills, such as, like I said, being able to de-escalate situations, problem solve, being able to talk to people, read people, all these things. Any form of customer service, even if it's healthcare, like those skills come into play heavily because you end up with people that are in a mood or they're dealing with some shit, so they're not happy, and you learn how to like recognize those signs, recognize what they need from you, and play into that. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit, and I don't think people give us enough credit for those things that we do learn.
Yeah.
So
it's awesome. So you go from West Virginia, you go to Ohio, you go follow some love and everything, and then you end up to Florida because you're, fuck it, I'm done. I'm going out to.
I'm leaving.
I'm going to my parents, and then you end up in Florida, and you end up in the central. You end up in here in the Space Coast because of your family, right?
Yes.
How do you end up? Where do you start bartending again? Or where you start working in the industry again? So I know you started in Publix, right?
I started in Publix, but it was within that same year I started at just bartending at the local bars. I don't want to name names.
Yes,
but local bars, just off and on. It wasn't like a consistent schedule. It was like one day a week, just for extra money, whatever. And then eventually, some of my connections of Publix actually left to go work for Sunny's out at the Space Center, which was fun. And they got me in. So that wasn't really bartending, but it was in the food service side of it. And from there, I built up a relationship with the owners, and like they saw my work ethic, whatever. So then I got moved to the catering side of it. And that's when we started catering the rocket lunches, and I got put behind the bar serving beer, which is awesome because I'm like, I can serve like 3 or 4 people at a time and just bust out like all these drinks. Like, yeah, here you go. So it ended up being super fun for me. My favorite thing of working out there. Then COVID hit. So I got offered to manage a restaurant that was outside of the Space Center. And I took it because, it looked like it was decent money, and not saying it wasn't, but it was a good opportunity. It gave me the experience and everything. But managing is awful. Like, it really is. And like, I have so much respect for managers because they put up with so much.
And they don't get paid as much.
They don't get paid. Like, I mean, the pay isn't the worst thing, but
No.
it definitely, you see bartenders and servers pulling in mega tips. And it's like, okay, per hour, you're making more than me. And I'm working like 60 hours a week and not seeing my kid and all this other stuff. And it's just...
And that's the other problem with management is that, like, you have to be so much more involved into the labor side. You have to be so much more involved into the business. And then now you're spending way more time working, and you're not making enough money. Like, you're still making less money than the bartender that comes in, works 3-4 nights a week, and then is out and doesn't have to deal with inventories, and doesn't have to deal with like making schedules or any of that stuff. Like, making schedules is the worst.
Making schedules is the worst. Like, because it is the restaurant, but you still have some people that want certain schedule. They want a certain schedule, and you try your best. But let me tell you, if you mess up, you're going to hear about it. And it's not going to be in a couple of days. No, as soon as that schedule's posted, you're going to hear about it.
I was supposed to be up that day.
It's so rough because it's like you have like 30 people you're making a schedule for, and it's like, I'm sorry that I missed your one thing. I'll correct it next week. And they're like, well, I'm going to lose money. And it's like, I understand and I apologize, but like, it's easy to miss, and I try my best. Like, I hope you can appreciate that. But I don't know. I loved managing and I hated managing. It was very much a love-hate relationship.
I hated it all around. I just like, fuck this.
My thing was, I mean, I do struggle with mental health issues from time to time. And I was going through a really rough spot in my life. Unfortunately, not because of COVID, but right around the same time that COVID hit. So we went down to skeleton crew, which means as a manager, you're picking up all these extra things. You're doing dishwashing, you're doing at Sunny's, you're doing meat prep, you're doing all of this. And it was weighing on me. And I did the best that I could, but about a year in, which COVID had calmed down some, I had a lot of things that happened in my life. And I just wasn't at the top of my game. I wasn't shitty, but I wasn't at the top of my game. I knew it, and I was trying to get out of it. But when you're bartending, you can kind of just leave it at the door and focus on, your customers and what you need to do. And then, it gets your mind off of it. With managing, it was like, I had to worry about everyone else's problems, and then I would have enough downtime that I could still focus on mine. And it felt like I didn't give anything the proper attention that it needed. And that really sucked. So I'm like, I would, even for that reason alone, just the ability to go in and just forget your life for a minute and not relax, but just leave it at the door. You don't have to do it. It's so much easier when you're bartending or you're serving, because
you don't have to think about the schedules.
You don't have the time.
You don't have the time.
No, it's just what you're doing right then, and then the rest of it can catch up when you leave.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas I'm like, schedules. They're falling behind in the kitchen.
Somebody
the servers are struggling. Someone called out. Yeah. It's always something.
It's not worth
exhausting.
it. Like, it wasn't really worth it for me, because the same thing was like, I have my struggles and stuff like that, and I struggle with mental health as well. And like, when I did the couple of times I did management, it was like, I just felt like I no longer had a life. I just, my life had become the restaurant, and I was kind of like, I just don't want to have to, like, even when I was off, I was getting texts and calls. I was like, this is not worth it. Like, you can leave it at work. You can't just fucking forget about it, like, or tune it out, unless you turn off your phone and disconnect the world. But then everything comes back and it's a problem. So it's just like, it wasn't worth it for me.
And that was my biggest thing. And I mean, that was the last thing I did before I majority pulled out from the food service industry. Was I was working these insane hours and dealing with all this stuff, and it's like I wasn't seeing my child.
Yeah.
And my thing is, like, I brought her into this world. She's my job to raise, not everyone else's. So I wanted to be able to see her. And then when I worked there, even when I would get to see her, like you said, I was getting texts or calls about something that was going on. Even if it wasn't directly related to me, my servers were having a problem with another manager and they wanted to vent about it. So they're calling me. And, I'm glad that they felt that they could come to me. But at the same time, I'm like not giving my daughter the attention she deserves.
Yes.
And then I'm irritable and overstimulated.
Because you don't have a break. You never have a break.
And so then I'm like getting angry with my daughter because she's asking me a question. And it's like, I have to apologize to her because, like, it's not your fault. I'm having an issue and, whatever. And I hated that feeling. I hated the feeling of letting my kid down. Like, letting the people down at work
It's just not worth it.
was bad enough. Like, I hated it. But letting your own kid down is just not okay. It's not okay for me.
And so with the way that it affects your mental health, it's a problem. And that's something that we actually have to worry about a lot in the industry is our mental health. Because it's like, to me, for me, for example, was like being able to have a balance and being able to find like good habits and create good habits is hard when you work in an opposite schedule of the entire world. You can't get a routine. So you can't really, it's really hard to build, I'm going to have like a good eating schedule. I'm going to have a good sleeping schedule, which is probably like the most important thing if you're struggling with any type of mental health. It's just all over the fucking place. You're always tired. And that was one of the things like I want to talk about is that I know we have some issues and we have some like mental health. We're not like, schizophrenic or anything like that, but a lot of people in the industry do.
Anxiety, depression, all this. And like you said, the sleep schedule and stuff, that can play a big part of it. Those things definitely can exacerbate the situation for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things, because like you don't really have like a set sleep schedule. You're working the opposite schedule of the entire world.
Yeah.
And so even if you were able to manage to get a good, decent sleep and everything like the same time, it's hard because you need to run errands. Nothing's open when you're at night. So like, let's say you work 4 days a week. Well, you go to bed at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning that week, those 4 days, right? And then you get your 8 hours of sleep. Great. But what about the other 3 days? Now you have to accommodate and try to sleep every day at the same time. Like you're gonna have to go to sleep at the same time every day. But what that leaves you is that your days off now are basically useless because everybody is asleep when you're awake.
Yep.
So you can't really have a balanced schedule because those 3 days off, you're gonna have to either wake up earlier to be able to do things with your kid, or be able to do things with like your family, or just hang out with friends, or you're gonna have to try to, and you can go to sleep earlier. And then now you're missing out sleep, and then by the time you actually go to your next shift, you feel like shit.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle,
yes.
Honestly. And there are so many good things that come out of it, but those things, and it's not something that you can really control because in that industry, like you have to work, but somebody has to work those hours. And I've learned that with me, I would rather, if I'm going to be closer, I want to be closer all the time. I don't want to do this where I'm closing one night, opening the next day, like doing all of that because it messes my sleep schedule up anymore. Whereas even if I can at least be like, okay, I'm a closer all week, I can just kind of adjust my sleep schedule and be like, okay, well, I'm going to get to bed this late, but I'll just continue that and give me some consistency. Whereas if I had to close that night and open the next morning, I was so screwed.
Yeah.
Because by the you get home, you can't go right to bed. You have to unwind and decompress and eat and whatever. And so then, now I'm only getting 2 hours of sleep. And then you're at work the next day and you're dragging. And everyone's like, what's wrong? And it's like, I didn't get any sleep. And I didn't eat properly. And now I'm here and I'm having to put a smile on my face.
Yeah,
but,
and I'm like, this close to a panic attack.
Yes. And I'm like, so can we I've always asked, can we just at least make the schedule? Like, I understand that we're going to have to swap it out every once in a while. But if I have to open, don't make it a day that I close. I would rather close after a day of opening than opening after a day of closing because I can't get that myself into the right mode, for that kind of routine, especially. And even if my kid is in bed, if whoever's watching her has her in bed by the time I get home, she's up. As soon as she hears me pulling the driveway. So
now it's also affecting her at this point.
And she's in my room asking me questions and whatever. And I'm like, go to bed.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be that way because you haven't seen her all day.
You want to hang out with her. You want to see her. You want to get her a hug. But you also want her to have a decent sleeping schedule. So it's a problem.
There are definitely pros and cons for sure. But I think it's a great starting point for people. One, it teaches you to have responsibility for your life because you have to make those routines. Even if it's difficult to do, you got to make do with what you have and figure out how to survive it and make the best of it, which is a good thing to learn in early. Because then when you're in your 30s, you're like, oh, this is easy. We're good. We got this now. Oh, listen. We're pretending.
We're trying our best over here, okay?
Listen, that was, okay, so I should have asked my dad while I was on vacation in North Carolina. I was like, how in your early 20s or mid 20s to early 30s did you have it all together? My dad straight up looked me in the eye and goes, I faked it. And I was like, okay, so I'm not alone.
I feel like that's a realization that I've come to terms with as well with my parents.
Yeah,
is that
they
like
faked it.
these lying fucks. Like I grew up thinking that they had it together. No,
They did
they
not.
didn't. Like
I know,
bullshit.
but it's made me feel so bad because I'm like,
I wish they would have told me.
I just turned
'Cause it puts so
31 and
much
I feel like
pressure.
I'm failing. Like I feel like my life is in shambles. And then like I said, I looked my dad dead in the eye and asked him that question, and he just goes, "I faked it." I'm like, okay, that made me feel better, but you should have told me that like 5 years
It
ago.
would have been very helpful. Saved me a lot of anxiety. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Like, and that's the thing. Is like one of those things that like our parents never tell us. Is like they don't
Nobody
talk about
does.
it. It's like, but how do you do that? Like like I'm a parent. I'm a parent, and like my daughter has been many times. She's caught me off guard, asked me a random question about
Yeah.
random shit, and I don't really know how to answer it. And one of those things was like something about me crying one time, but I never really actually do it in front of her or anything like that. She was just kind of like, "Oh, so when I leave, you're like, I'm like, yes, I mean it's okay." And then she was just kind of like curious about the why. I'm like, and then you turn, but then I look back and I'm like, all right, I want to be able to like be a better parent. Not that I had shitty parents or anything like that. Like I was lucky, but I want to be able to be a better parent than like be like, all right, let's see. I wish my parents would have done this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be open about it. Like
Yeah.
I never understood that my parents would cry until my dad, at least until I was in my 20s, and then I was like
especially
a
with
grown-ass
the
man.
generation before us, the dads didn't cry. That
I
wasn't
grew up in
thing.
a third world country.
But even my dad,
Yes.
like it was like he didn't cry. Like
no,
ever.
they just.
And the one time I knew that he cried, but I still didn't see it, was when his mom, my grandma, died, and like even still, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. I don't know. I am very open with my daughter because I know when we were younger, mental health just wasn't a thing.
No, not
at all. And I want her to know that it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to have your ups and downs. And so she has seen me. There are still things that I hold back from her. I don't just completely like immerse her in
Yeah,
the world.
it's like there are things that like you gotta like
yeah. But I let her know, I'm
navigate.
like, I'm struggling. Like this is what's going on. Like, I need you to understand. Because one, I feel
It's about honesty.
Yeah, one, I feel like it gives them a better understanding of what you're going through.
Yes.
So like they're like, okay, so I need to stop asking for things 500 times because we have bills to pay, and then also I want that to be open for her. So like when she is struggling, like I don't want to say when, but in this world, in this society, it's a matter of when. She knows she can come to me and that it's not like a taboo thing.
No.
Like she realizes like, okay, sometimes we have a shitty moment and we got to deal with it. And, mom has made me aware that this happens and we can get through it together and I can be open about it. I don't have to hide it.
That's the thing. It's like we didn't really have that growing up.
No.
Like mental health wasn't a thing that everybody was aware of.
It was a weakness.
It was a
You're just
weakness.
weak.
It was something that like, oh no, you just psychologists are for like crazy people.
Crazy people,
Like,
yeah.
no, dude. Like, you know what? Like, a lot of times, like, I wish I would have been able to see these things, and that's one of the things that I do with my daughter is like, I just try to be honest about things, and I try to be honest so that she can actually be honest with me about her, and that's one of the things that I'm thankful that I was able to build a bridge with my daughter, where she's like comfortable telling me things when she's struggling with things.
Yeah.
My daughter's a kid, but she's also like, I know she's not, even when she makes a mistake or she does something wrong, she has the ability to come to me because she knows she's not going to have
A
judgment or
Yeah.
she's not going to be,
For sure.
framed back. Like, all right, let's just understand why this happened.
And it's funny, going back to the whole bartending thing, I have learned a lot just because you have your regulars that, like we talked about, they become family and you end up venting your whole freaking life to them. And I realize that like everybody needs that. And
Yes.
so I've tried to be that for my daughter. But I also realized from that, like, sometimes it is your fault. Sometimes you are the problem. And to make it better, like, all it's like is like, my bad, I'm sorry. Like, how can I make this better?
Self-accountable.
And I have brought that. It's not something I learned at home, for sure. It was not something. I learned that in the industry. It was like, sometimes you just gotta own your shit.
Yeah.
You just have to own it and realize, like, okay, all I can do now is apologize and try to be better or make the situation better. And I have brought that home to my kid because there are so many times where, like, I have been overstimulated and I just snap.
Yeah.
And I don't remember ever getting an apology from my parents. Like, my parents were not bad. Like, it wasn't a terrible upbringing. But if they snapped on me, I just had to sit in it.
Yep.
Like, that's just what it was. Whereas I'm like, no.
It's like they were entitled to be able to do that. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want my daughter to be like, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why she was. So, like, I literally bring her in and I'm like, I am sorry. Like, I was having an issue and I took it out on you. I didn't mean to do that. You did nothing wrong. Like, the ability to apologize to my kid and just own it.
It makes a difference.
I think that really came from just all my years in the food service industry, whether it be bartending, serving, managing, all of it. Like, I mean, let's be real. If you're managing, sometimes you have to apologize for things that aren't even your fault.
Oh, yeah.
So I appreciate that because that isn't something I learned at home. That's not something I learned growing up. That's something I learned just through life. And
it's just part of the de-escalation process.
And I try to bring that with my kid. And I think that's super important even in your home life because now she knows, like, okay, so, like, she's not sitting there wondering what she did wrong and, you know, feels like she's walking on eggshells. She can actually, like, be herself and realize, like, okay, mom apologized. And maybe she'll learn that skill from me rather than having to be like me and learn it out in the world. And, you know, we're just trying to break generational curses one generation at a time.
A little bit at a time.
If that's the one that I break, I'm good with that. Not saying I'm perfect, but, like, that's the one that I want to break.
Chip at it a little bit at a time, a little bit. Because that's one of those things. Is like, same. Like, I never actually felt that I need an apology from my dad, for example, until I was in my 30s. And it wasn't necessarily like an apology. It was one of those things that I'm just kind of like, say it just to say it. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. But it's one of those things that, like, with my daughter, for example, is like, I probably, like, raised my voice to my daughter a couple times in my life, like twice. And it happens.
Yeah.
But then I immediately turn around, like, I wait a couple minutes, I take a deep breath, and I turn around and was like, I'm sorry, I should not, you know, raise my voice. But you also have to understand that, you know, what you did was wrong, but this is not the way. And I don't want you to think that I'm never going to, like, and like 98% of the time when she made a mistake, I just talk to her like, you see what you're doing?
They're so receptive.
And
people don't think kids are, but they are.
Responds better to that. Like, she actually, like, gets to understand how that works a little bit better. And she's like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm being a little turd. And she stops doing it. And she stops, like, misbehaving. And then she behaves great. And she's just, but, like, I do remember, like, when I was a kid, like, I used to just tune out the screams and not give a shit and then just be worse. And that was like, all right, I didn't like being screamed when I was a kid. That didn't work for me. I'm not going to do that to my daughter because it's probably not going to work either.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's actually a thing. Like,
Yeah. And it's like, there's such extremes right now with everything being, oh my gosh, with literally everything. Even, like, if you're on TikTok at all, you even see, like, the servers and how they're having to coddle these very entitled people or, like, versus, you know, going at them. And there's a balance. There is a balance there. And you have to learn that bartending, like, you have to make things right to a certain extent. The customers are right to a certain extent.
Yes.
But there's also a time and a place where you have to just be like, no, you're wrong. And that's not how we're going to play this. And I don't know, it's such a life skill that I don't feel like our generation was really taught because our parents were so just black and white. Like, you do this, it's my way or the highway. There's no in between. And so we were so, like, timid. We were just like, okay, whatever you say, like, yeah, you got it, whatever.
But sometimes.
And then like, as we got in this and, like, whether it be at work or, you know, whatever, like, no, like, I deserve better than this. Like, you're not going to talk to me that way. You know, like, you're not always right.
That changed a lot in the industry since the pandemic. Because before the pandemic, we were...
One good thing out of COVID.
Oh, thank God. Yes, because, like, before the pandemic, it was kind of like, you just kind of had to suck it up. After the pandemic, you're like, you know what, asshole? Yeah. Just grab your shit, do your time, get the fuck out. Yes. And, like, there was not... Like, before, you didn't really feel like you were able to do that because you didn't feel like your boss was going to back you up or something. It had to be something extreme. But now it's like, you know what? Like, you don't get to talk to my coworker like that. You don't get to talk to me like that.
That was one thing that I did pride myself on.
I'm going to give you another shot. If you don't behave, then you're going to get the fuck out. I'm going to, you know, talk to her the fuck you want. I don't care.
Yeah. That is one thing that I did pride myself on as a manager. I didn't always get the backup from my owners when people would go to quote unquote corporate or whatever, but I used to be a server. I used to be a
Yes.
bartender. I know how shitty people can be. Sometimes you have awesome people and you love seeing them come in. You know it's going to be a good time. You're going to be able to like harass each other back and forth.
Yeah.
You're going to get a good tip. It's going to be a great day. But you have those people. And we had one in Sunny's that nobody wanted to serve because he was an ass. He was an absolute asshole. No matter what you did, it was wrong. He would be on the phone with corporate before his food was even at the table. Like it was insane. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I used to be a server and I hated when my managers wouldn't stick up for me and was just customer's always right. So I was like, no. I was like,
That was like corporate mentality that
no.
you get
And I
from
was
those
like, dude,
places.
no, you are wrong. I will get you something else if you would like, but you are no longer allowed to order this because it's never right and we end up wasting more food on you because it's not how you like it, even though it's not to spec. Like we have a spec that we have to meet for our restaurant and you want it outside of that. Like I'm not doing that for you.
That was that culture in corporate like food chain restaurants and stuff.
Customers
Because
always
like
right.
I did like every time that I worked at a smaller place, like a mom and pop place or like just like an independent place, there was always that like that line where like, all right, if you cross the line as a customer, you can fuck off.
Yeah.
However,
and it needs to be
I
that
also
way.
and I also worked at the corporate restaurants or like corporate bars or
Mhm.
chains where like there is no line. Like they
No,
can
there
fucking go and go and go, and for whatever reason, there is like and the trainings and all these things. Like the corporate mentality was like the customer's always right. We gotta make it up to they're
let's
at
send them
complete
a
hassle.
coupon for
Let's send a
free
coupon for
food.
free food.
Yep.
No, like
Yep.
I always hated that about the corporate restaurants when I did a couple
Yeah.
of those. I was just like, this is
And
not for me.
And it's like, I understand it to an extent,
Yeah.
but sometimes, like, we had things where it was like people just didn't understand the menu or didn't look at the menu or it was just stupid things, but it's like, it's not worth it
No.
for the money. It's not worth it to battle it. And I get that.
Yes.
But there are some where it's like they are just trying to push and see what they can get away with, and it's obvious, and I just wouldn't have it. And I was sure to tell the owners, the manager, I'm like, I'm not apologizing for this.
No, fuck
Like one
that.
time I had a couple of this older woman that this girl, she was of like, I think she was of some sort of Hispanic background. I don't remember exactly what. And she went up to take their order. She spoke perfect English. She didn't even have an accent. Like, I don't know what this lady was talking about, but she ordered something and it was read back to her exactly what she wanted. I have it like on camera and I have witnesses of this. And she got what she ordered and it's not what she wanted. And she decided to bring me out and be like, you need to bring me someone that speaks English. And I was like, I've talked to your server plenty of times. She speaks and understands perfect English. And she's like, well, I just don't think so. And I'm like, okay, so you're just being racist.
Yeah,
Like
so
you're just being
just look
difficult. And I'm like, I will bring you another chicken, but we're not doing this anymore. Like, this is what you meant to order. That's not what you actually ordered. So next time, get this. And I stood my ground. She did place a complaint, which was kind of funny because an hour later, her grandson that was with her came back and apologized on her behalf. And I was like, well, your grandma already placed a corporate complaint.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not her. She's just old. And she does. And I'm like, I get that. But like at the same time, it gets to a point where like, I'm not going to put up with it.
There's got to be a line. There's
Yeah,
always going to be a line.
And I feel like
see how-
I did get shit on a little bit as a manager from like the people above me because it was like, well, just give her what she wants, give her what she wants. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
because I understand that to a point, but not at the abuse of my other employees. I'm not going to let my employees get abused if it's not warranted. That's not okay.
And that's the thing about like that corporate world is that they don't allow for that good leadership to be, bred into
Yes.
it. Because if you go to a smaller place, like an independent place, like most likely the owner is probably going to be working behind the bar sometimes, or
Yep.
most likely the owner is going to be
They're more
in the
involved.
building. They're more involved.
Yes.
They actually understand more, and they care about the business, but they
Mhm.
also care about their employees because there's a sense of, I want to say family, but
And
there's
that's,
a more
that's
like
when
a,
that's when it's worth it.
Yes,
It's
that's
when the
worth
people
it.
have a care for you, not just the money, you know?
And then you have the corporate world that all they care about is that complaint, that rate, that
Yeah.
that rating. They're like, oh, that the cyber has to be done. And like I do remember like seeing good people going to work in these places that were good workers, and then just leaving because the money's not good, because the way it's set up is like, they limit your ability to make money. They limit your ability to actually work a good schedule.
Yeah.
They also put restrictions on a lot of things. And,
Yeah.
and the worst part is like when you have managers, the incentive is not on, hey, I'm gonna keep my employees happy and
It's
make sure that we have a
customers.
good crew, but rather I gotta do whatever it takes
Yes.
to keep the most biggest asshole that we run into happy, and
Yep.
everything else is collateral damage.
Yep.
And that's where incentives go rather than to generate that.
Yes.
that
And I think that's something that needs to be changed
oh
personally.
yeah,
Like
especially in chains like
Yeah.
the Buffalo Wild Wings.
Because when
or
you
stuff
think about
that.
it, like, yes, not saying that the customers are not important. They are, because that's where your money
Yes.
is. But those employees, especially the really good ones, like, they're the face of your company. They're the ones that are keeping those customers coming back. They're the ones that are like the real value there. And if you show them that you value them, you take up for them whenever it needs to be done, you pay them adequately, you are understanding, compassionate, whatever needs to be in that situation.
Yeah.
Keeping those people there are going to bring in more customers because you have them there for a long, like, the longevity of it.
Yeah.
You know, they are there. They're going to create regulars. People like them. They're upselling. They're bringing in,
that was
money.
the thing with the pandemic was like there was such a shortage of people.
The turnover was insane.
It was so bad. Like there was
Yes.
no people that wanted to work in the industry
Mhm.
anymore, whether because they were able to find jobs that were remote or whether they just
Yeah.
didn't want to go back to it. That now they were forced to change the mentality of like, now I got to look out for my employees, because if I don't keep my employees
Yeah.
happy, I'm not gonna like places couldn't open because they didn't have people to
We
work.
didn't have people.
There was no, like, I remember like where I was working, they were like,
Yeah.
they ended up having to close 2 days a week because
Yeah.
there were not enough staff to be able to
And
run
that's
the
the thing,
place a week.
When that went through, like, I realized, okay, so the people that stuck with me through COVID, through all of the, like, because we were not set up to do curbside. We got thrown into that immediately.
Yeah.
We were not set up to do freaking bar basically on the go, like, to
Yeah.
go beers. We were not ready, but we
Which
did the best
actually,
we
that's
could.
a good thing that happened in
Oh,
Florida.
that's the
we
best
still
thing
have
that
it. It's
happened.
like now you get
That
to
is-
go big.
If one thing came from COVID that benefits everyone,
Is
it's
to go
that.
the roadies.
But yeah, no, it's like you really learn, like, these are my ride or dies. These
Yeah.
are the ones that have been here, are still here through all this bullshit, and they're going to be here. I need to take care of them
Yeah.
because they took care of me. Like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type thing.
Yes.
And that was very much not the case before COVID, especially in corporate, but it has gotten better, and I hope it continues to, because it's needed. That mentality needed to change heavily. And, I'm sure there's still places that don't, but I would like to think that we're on the upward side of that.
Yeah, like I feel like the industry has actually gone through a lot of changes since the
Yeah.
pandemic, like I said, and I'm not really sure about the corporate stuff because I really have been out of that for a long time. But at least the places that I've worked since the pandemic happened, or like the things that I've seen, or the people that I know that actually work on that, they feel more empowered to be able to say no. They feel
Yeah.
more empowered. They feel more backed up by the leadership. They actually feel that they are actually being taken care of. People are actually on their own taking responsibility for their own mental health and like trying to
And that's
find
awesome.
a balance. Because a lot of people before, like, they were trying to overwork themselves. After the pandemic, they'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna work only 4 shifts a week. I'm gonna take it easy. I'm trying not to do 3, 4, 5 doubles in a row. Instead, I'm just gonna limit my work schedule so that I have time to go and fucking do what I like doing.
Yeah. And that's great.
Yes.
That's awesome. That was something that I always struggled with, like, especially as a bartender. It was like, if someone called out, they would call me because I would be like, yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes for sure, because the money
Oh, yeah,
was
the
good.
money.
But I didn't take into account, like, I would end up exhausting myself.
Of
I wouldn't
course.
take my mental health into account or my life with my daughter or anything. It was just like, oh, I need to survive. Money.
Yes.
And after COVID, I think everyone did become, besides that, like, being more firm in, standing up for yourselves and your employees, I do think people became more aware of the mental health side of things. And they're like, no, you know what? I'm okay
People
with
became
working
more
this double,
understanding.
but, like, if someone's calling out, like, sorry, I just can't today, I don't feel like it. Like, that's the thing.
It's
Is
crazy
no
because-
is enough. You
Yes.
don't have, like,
You don't have
if
to
you're
explain.
not scheduled and your employer calls you in, no matter what guilt trip they try to lay on you, it's not your job. Like,
Yes.
it's okay to say no. You don't have to give an explanation. Just be like, no,
Like,
not today. Sorry.
There's a guilt trip of like, oh, like maybe, or they're not gonna schedule you as much
Yeah.
anymore
And
because you have
that's
managers
awful.
all like that. That's awful. But maybe you shouldn't work in that place if that's
Yeah.
the case. If they're not gonna respect your boundaries,
And there are
then maybe
so
find
many
another place.
bartender jobs
Open everywhere.
I'm trying. There are people that I'm still like, they're still serving, and I'm like, go be a bartender. And it's funny because like there are people that like were just doing like cashier to go stuff, and I was like, I pushed them to become a server. I'm like, trust me, you won't regret it. Like, be a server. Like, you will make more money. Now they love being a server, and I'm like, go be a bartender.
Yeah.
Go do it. And they're like, I don't. I'm like, no, trust me. Remember when I told you to be a server? Remember how much happier you are?
Yes.
Trust me, it's gonna get better. Go be a bartender. You have that experience behind you now. Now all you got to do is just learn how to make drinks, and you're gonna be set. Like, just go do it.
And like a lot of people don't understand a lot of the component of being a bartender is like, it's like 30% making drinks. Everything else is a bunch of other skills that you gotta take into consideration, like time management, being able to work under stressful situations, knowing how to live with people, how to read people. All those things are more important to become a bartender. Like, being personable. Like, you can know how to make all the drinks in the world, but if you're not personable and you don't know how to read people and you don't know how to like deal with like obnoxious or drunk people and not be responsible and not be able to work under pressure, like when that printer is going off the fucking hook, you're working the service bar that night,
That's the thing.
and you can't control your stress and you're gonna panic, you're gonna fucking sink.
See, that's why I tell people, I'm like, I don't get stressed out with like long lines or crowds or whatever, and that is one thing that I will say to any job that I go into. I don't care what it is. That is one skill set that I have, because I just talk to the people, and it, like, if I'm running behind, I'm just kind of like, so sorry, like, this is happening, like, I'll be with you in a second, like, but interacting with them constantly, being personable, making jokes at your own expense because you messed up.
You drop a glass,
just,
and they
that
break,
doesn't go there.
and
Like,
you just fucking scream
I don't know
and
how many
laugh
times
about
I
it.
literally would drop something, and I'm like, oops, that doesn't go there, and like, everyone just laughs, and then they're more at ease, and they're more willing to understand, like, oh, it's taking a second for my drink because this idiot over here dropped the glass or whatever. But it makes it better, and those are skills that you definitely need.
Yeah,
and
you have to be able to tough it out.
It's so good. It's so, I like, even where I work now, I'm not even in the food service industry, and if I mess up, I'm so loud about it. If there's people out in the lobby, I am very vocal and just laughing and making fun of myself. And then when I go out there, they're already in a good mood and making fun of me. And I'm like, yeah, see, like, it works. Like, you're no longer mad. You're waiting 20 minutes for what you need. You're just laughing because I'm the entertainment for this evening. Like, please come again. I'll be here all week. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a good skill to learn.
It is funny. It's part of being a bartender. It's part of being just. It's a whole thing. It's like you become self-aware of who you are. You become self-aware of the situations that you can get away with. You become self-aware of just, life is just fucking. You just gotta leave it and ride it, and it's an adventure. And nothing's gonna be perfect. Shit's gonna break. People are gonna like you. People are gonna hate you.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. You're gonna fuck up. And you're probably going to fuck up again.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Oh, it's definitely not your last time. Yeah. Never.
So, and that's life. And that's one of the things that I love about bartending. It's just like, it's such a analogy of life, of like, this is how life is behind the bar. It's just like, you have mistakes, you have errors, you have ups and downs, and you have, sometimes you make a lot of money, sometimes you walk out of there with shit money. And it all averages out at the end of the day, and some days you're going to have awesome people, and some days you're going to deal with every asshole in the county, and that's fun. And sometimes your boss is going to be in a good mood, sometimes your boss is probably going to need to get laid because he's probably in a bad mood or she's in a bad mood, but whatever, you have to learn how to deal with those things. Not everything's going to be awesome.
It all balances out. It's all about finding that balance and in those situations, recognizing the balance, because some days are going to be great, some days are going to be not so great, but like, if it averages out, then we're chilling.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Let's just take your wings.
Yeah.
And drink a beer.
Drink a beer, yeah. Just don't knock it over like I about did a second ago.
I've been there, done that.
I talk too much with my hands.
Dude, I'm like holding my hands here just
That's
because
why
of the same
mine are
reason.
in my lap.
I'm like over here,
don't
like,
swing around and hit something.
I'm about to knock this fucking beer over. So Lydia, I'm so happy we did this. I'm
Yes.
so excited. Like I'll do it 1,000 times with you because you're
Anytime.
fucking
Listen,
awesome.
you want a guest on the podcast,
I
even if
will
it's with
fucking
someone
do it.
else, I'll be here.
Listen,
I have a great time.
I absolutely love the shit out of you because you're awesome, and it's like you're somebody that's so easy to talk to, and like even when we don't
you.
talk about like we're not on the podcast or anything, like just hanging out with you and talking is just fucking awesome. I'm really thankful for you. I'm really thankful for being able to do this again, even though we fucked up. I fucked up the audio the first time.
Hey, the video's great. That's
The
all that
video's
matters.
great. I'm gonna make a bunch of clips with it and just
Just the
fucking like the video and
So
just
you
put
make
them
the
everywhere.
like simple ads
Yeah.
just with the video. Got to use it for something, you know.
Well, Lydia, remember we do this thing, the regular of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I know you gave it to somebody else the last time. I want to know if you want to do
I
the
don't
same
want to
thing.
change it. I
You don't
want
want
to
to
give it
change
to
it,
the
so
same
let's
person.
talk about that.
Okay, so his name was Don King. I'm gonna give his name. Maybe he'll hear this. Let's hope. He was
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, he was an older gentleman from my very start in West Virginia. I didn't bartend with him, but I did serve him. And he was the one that I talked about earlier that like when I left, he brought me gifts, and he would always come in between the lunch rush and the dinner rush. So he'd be like the only one in the restaurant. And I would just sit there with him, bring him, he would get cherry Coke, but he wanted actual cherries in it, machine cherries. And I'd bring it out to him and just sit there and talk to him. And we talk about, I have a pretty diverse interest just because of how I grew up and who I grew up with. So we talk about old movies from the 60s, 70s, like whatever. We talk about that. And he loved that I was a young person and was interested in those things. So I just would vibe with him and just talk and talk and talk. And whenever I left, he brought me in a huge gift of like basically a huge tip. Like it was like $200 in a card. And he brought me what I said my favorite older movie was on DVD. He brought it to me, and he is the reason that I stayed in the industry as long as I could, because he showed me what kind of relationships I really could, and have on with people, and the impact I could have on people. Like obviously, he enjoyed coming to see me. I made his day. He still to this day keeps in contact with me and like Facebook messages me or sends me letters. And it just made such a huge impact on my life that I've got to give it to him. He's amazing. I still go to lunch with him whenever I go up there and visit. He's amazing. Like
Don King.
Just a great guy.
Listen, cheers to you, man. Definitely you deserve it. He's a regular of the week.
Yes.
And today we are at the Village Idiot Pub in Cocoa Village. So if anybody of you guys are ever in the Space Coast in Cocoa, come check out the Village. The Village is awesome. You're going to find all sorts of restaurants and food, but definitely stop by the Village Idiot Pub. They have the best selection of beers, craft beers in the entire area. They have a good vibe. They have a bunch of games, and the owners are awesome. I absolutely love Jason. He's an amazing person.
Great
and the bartenders are cool.
I love it.
Actually, this place opened when I moved to Florida, so it's one of my favorite spots.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they also have a great.
Here for their mead.
Yes.
The Vikings blood mead.
Yes.
That was my thing.
I'm so mad that they don't have it anymore. But now that I'm a sober bartender, because I haven't had a drink in about a year, they do have beer, non-alcoholic beer. And they actually have a great selection. So if you want to come here, they have about 5 or 6 different non-alcoholic beers, from stouts, pilsners, you name it. So come check it out. Thanks to the Village Idiot for letting us do this here. And Lydia, it's an absolute pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. We got to do this again.
Okay, anytime.
Cheers.
Cheers.